What timing. What wonderful timing for them to be doing this. Ah,
Should we just close the door?
still. Where will the next Amazon or Google come from? Today's guest believes that, at least in some part, it will be on chain. You will use the blockchain and you will be happy. Please welcome Mark Rydon of Aethir, the on-demand GPU provider, which we'll find is aiming at a target much higher than just ATH. Mark, happy to have you here. Thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
So the first thing I wanted to ask you about is, where is this place above ATH? And yes, that's a play on words because ATH is the token, it's the ticker. Where is this place beyond ATH that Aether is heading to? What is like the 1 year goal? And stepping back a little bit from there, what made you want to do this in the first place?
Sure. I'll start with maybe the origin story, the desire to build Aether. We actually started more on the gaming side of things, right? My co-founder and I were both big gamers. Dan was very early on at Riot Games before kind of following their journey through, took League of Legends through its acquisition and the Riot acquisition by Tencent, where he was a COO, and then kind of left that to start his own ventures and partner with me to build Aether. We were kind of motivated by this idea that there was all of this great gaming content out there, but the vast majority of gamers were restricted from accessing it as a result of their hardware, right? You needed a gaming PC, you needed a console, you needed a high-end phone, right? There's 3.3 billion gamers out there. 2 point something billion of them game on low-end devices. They can't play League of Legends. They can't play World of Warcraft or Counter-Strike, all of those games that kind of Dan and I grew up loving. And we thought, how do you fix that? How do you kind of unlock those gamers in a way that gives them access to all of that content, but also, gives big gaming publishers access to those users, right? Because that's a massive untapped market for them. And really the only way to do it was to abstract away their requirement to have the hardware themselves. And the GPU cloud and its ability to render in real time was a technical solution, right? It was largely just a question of how do you scale that technology, right? You had Google Stadia in the US. It was delivering a solution that was very, very promising, but they couldn't get this tech out of the US, out of like Western Europe, right? And why scale a technology like that to a market where everyone can already afford a gaming PC or a PS, right? And we thought that the best way to do that was on the back of a decentralized compute network, right? The unit economics of scaling infrastructure like that is very, very different. Also, there's some latency benefits with how distributed compute networks are able to deliver compute workloads closer to users. And that was kind of the original spark for us. Now, funnily enough, that forced us down a couple of paths early on that really put us in a fantastic position to kind of expand our offering into AI quite quickly. But the main one was that no one complains more than a gamer if their experience is poor, right? If there's any lag, if there's any downtime.
I can attest to that.
Yeah, exactly. So we had to build this network in kind of an enterprise capable way, right? It really needed to be able to meet the standards that these gaming companies were requiring of us so that their customers weren't complaining to them all the time. And that forced us away from retail hardware and towards this enterprise first approach. And as a result, we built what was effectively the first enterprise grade DPIN, right? A DPIN built on the back of enterprise grade equipment. And from there, we realized that a bunch of enterprise grade GPUs in the cloud were pretty valuable for AI as well. And we started to kind of scale up there. So It was initially a gaming focused um, mission that kind of kicked Aether into gear. But in a sense, it's largely the same mission we have with AI, right? Which is making these resources available to anyone, right? Not just the biggest tech companies in the world or people that have the deepest pockets.
So you saw a big bottleneck was the capability of a device to render. So the device was the bottleneck for gamers, and gamers will complain. So any way to get a gamer to play their game faster or have lower latency, higher frames per second, any of those things was a net benefit for everyone. And your solution was decentralized GPU cloud, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. The funny thing is, when you talk about cloud gaming, a lot of I guess more privileged gamers like myself, right, would always kind of be critical. Okay, can a cloud gaming service deliver to me, crisp, perfect, latency-free FPS? Like, can I get out and play kind of pro level Apex Legends, pro level CS with a cloud gaming service? And you mostly can, but the service is not for people like you or me, right? The service is for people that have zero, right? And if you can give someone that has zero opportunity to play that content something that's 85, 90% of the way to a perfect experience, that is incredible.
Well, I think we see that already with the level of mobile gamers and casual gamers. Like they are not looking to play Elden Ring at max settings. They want to play their
Yeah,
gem games or whatever on the train or maybe even in their bed without needing a giant rig to play it. So that
100%.
that tracks. That tracks. They don't need to have 100%.
No,
It's totally unnecessary and it's not what they want even. They want to be able to just play the games that they want to play in their hands.
exactly. And not every game is going to, port perfectly to a mobile experience, right? But a lot of games will, and it's probably going to be the more strategic, less fast twitch style gameplay that ports best, right? League of Legends, for example, great example, great kind of game that ports to mobile.
That was the start. Where are you guys heading now? And we'll circle back into where you are at now.
Sure. So I think we've got two parts of the business, which I think people should be pretty clear on now. We've got the gaming adjacent cloud. We've got the AI adjacent cloud.
Right.
Gaming cloud, we're continuing to push forward. We bring on newer and better and more exciting titles all the time. We do partner with games on like a B2B in a B2B format. So for example, there's no Aether gaming platform you can kind of access and play directly through us. We unlock our resources for gaming companies to go and then deliver that content through their own platforms. So that's just something that I know a lot of people go, oh, where can I play these games that Aether is hosting? We don't have a platform ourselves. There's no B2C exposure. But a lot of the games that you'll access through other platforms out there are powered by Aether's infrastructure. We've got some cool stuff happening soon with some big AAA games that have just come out in the Web3 space. I'm not sure whether I'm allowed to name them, but if you think about the biggest AAA game that just came out in Web3 over the last maybe month, you can probably guess which one it is. So that's going to be very, very
And
cool.
that game is using Aether Compute.
That game will use some Aether Compute, yeah.
Maybe I'll flash some titles, some
Yeah.
game titles across
Guess
the screen.
which one.
Which one?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's really cool. I'm always excited to partner with great kind of gaming builders. And then we've got the AI compute side, right, which is really split into two verticals, right? The training side, right? This is where large language models go and they're trained and their capability increases over time. And then you've got the inferencing compute, which is the AI application side, the agents. Okay, you've trained your model. Now it needs to go and do something. How do you get it into a useful form? And both of those sides, both the gaming and the AI side, we're scaling up rapidly at the moment. I think we take a very real business approach to growth in the space. Revenue, contracts, utilization rate of our infrastructure, growing the supply in our network. And I think the big focus for us is just to continue steadily growing as our network scales in what it can offer.
Is there enough compute to service on the AI side, not an inference, even though that is a tremendous amount of compute? Probably more compute is needed for the training side. Do you have enough compute to serve anyone at this point, or what are the limitations for your capacity now? And how do you plan on improving the capacity for Aether so that it can service those in the future?
Yeah, good question. Surprisingly, we have more compute looking to join the network than we can actually accept. Right?
Why can you not accept it?
So when you look at a network, right, of generally of any form of resource, but particularly anything that's kind of capacity focused, right? You should care a lot about your utilization rate, how much of your equipment is actively being used, because generally with incentivized ecosystems, which is pretty much every ecosystem in crypto, there'll be some form of reward for idle participation, right? So if you, for example, open the floodgates of your network and you just let every GPU out there come in, you're paying for them to sit there and do nothing, right? So you're effectively draining your token reserves for no real added benefit. It's much better to have a supply-led business, right? You never want to ideally be turning away business, right? But it is reality. It is a reality every now and then. You never really want to be able to. You never really want to be turning away business, but at the same time, you want your business to be kind of in touch with supply, right? Supply-led, but still business in touch. And that's a fine sort of balance to keep, right? Because you need to kind of keep your sales funnel in touch with your supply chain. But it's kind of a necessary road to walk when you're building a decentralized or permissionless network. Because if you do just open the floodgates, bad actors will just come in, flood your network with infrastructure, drain your token, and then walk away.
So basically, people can glean from the amount of supply that you have, how much demand there is, because you're always going to try to stay at least around a half step ahead on the supply side of the demand.
Yeah. We like to sit anywhere from 70 to 80%, keep a 70 to 80% utilization rate for our infrastructure as best we can. So yeah, generally as we fill up with contracts, right, we'll start adding more supply in.
Is that the same sort of utilization rate that other major players are looking forward to?
I think
is that the standard, or is that something that Aether has now in its early stage?
That's a pretty incredible utilization rate, to be honest. If you've got a bunch of MacBooks connected to your network, it's very unlikely that you're able to find regular use cases for that compute. So generally, DPINs, at least in the compute space, sit closer to a 20% utilization rate.
Other DPINs do. What about other non-DPINs, like the centralized ones with the data center?
To be honest, they don't necessarily publicly release these numbers, but I would say that for them, their utilization rate would be probably a lot lower because they do not want to be turning away big contracts.
Yeah. And I guess that also explains why Google is making its own, a whole suite of AI tools, because they have so much compute to use. It's probably just sitting there. Their team probably said, we need to use this stuff because it's costing us billions of dollars. Then they go and make Gemini and all those other tool sets, right?
100%. I mean, one way I do have some data on um, data center GPU utilization, which is, I guess, a little bit of a proxy for equipment that you might find in the warehouses of someone like Google. And enterprise GPU utilization was across the US and data centers sitting between 15 to 18% utilized.
It really raises the question of why isn't it being used? Why do they have so much if it's just going to sit there? It's like having a gold mine of unmined gold and you're not going to do anything with it.
Yeah, I mean, this is why Aethir exists. It's the same idea as Airbnb, right? You've got this vast resource of available rooms sitting in people's homes, but the average person doesn't have the tools to advertise that room to people outside of their network.
RWAs, real world assets. How is Aether getting involved in real world assets now? Of course, we know what happened with Mantra, and I mean, it's still an ongoing thing. So maybe there'll be some ramifications to the RWA market, or maybe the tokenized RWA market in the near term. I don't know what will happen in the mid or long term. But what is Aether doing with tokenized RWAs or any other real world asset providers who want to get on chain?
Yeah, yeah. The whole Mantra scenario, unfortunate for the RWA space, and unfortunate for anyone that was burned there. We definitely need less bad actors in the space, ideally moving forward. But I think, to be honest, that the RWA sector is incredibly resilient. I think it adds a lot of value to the crypto space, and there's a lot of very, very sophisticated teams building pretty incredible RWA solutions in crypto. So still very bullish on that sector in particular, particularly with the larger institutional focus that we're seeing coming in through the US and other markets. So bullish on RWAs. Where does that put Aether from an RWA perspective? We're only really interested in kind of RWAs as they relate to GPUs, right? GPUs are a revenue generating, rare, and expensive asset, right? There's something that the average person cannot get a hold of, at least the GPUs that are used for AI workloads, right? Yet it's some of the most interesting and valuable infrastructure out there. The idea of being able to, for example, tokenize these GPUs in a way that turns them into something that you can fractionally offer to individual retail investors, and then have an asset class that will be deployed into data centers, deployed into Aether, earning a significant yield. I think is a very, very interesting financial product for those that are want more exposure to the AI sector.
How does that relate to ATH token, making ATH or making rather compute power a tokenized thing that can be traded?
Yeah. So I guess the easiest way to think about it, and a lot of very financially savvy people are wrapping this in different ways, but the simplest way to look at it is how does a GPU become valuable to an ATH token holder, right? Well, one of the ways, and arguably the most important way, is when that GPU is deployed into Aethir's network, it needs to stake a bunch of tokens, right? That process locks tokens into the ecosystem and is a valuable measure for the ecosystem as a whole. So if you can fractionalize, for example, an investment into a fleet of 1,000 H100s, right? That might be $10-20 million worth of infrastructure, right? Included in this fractionalized investment would be the amount of ATH that would be needed to be staked. You would then take that, deploy those GPUs into the network, and that would stake a large amount of Aethir token at the same time.
How are you? So you're banking on Aether, the network, with the compute power that it has, that it can provide, that will be the thing that everyone wants to get to, regardless of the fluctuations in ATH token price. Doesn't matter. They're still going to want this compute power. They have to buy the ATH token in order to get it, and then they can use it for whatever they want.
Yeah,
Is this what all your clients are doing, all the business partners?
sure, it is. With a little bit of a clarification. So first of all, compute is paid for in ATH, but it's priced in USD.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's pegged, it's fiat pegged. So if it's $2 an hour or $1.20 an hour for an H100, you're paying $1.20 an hour, but you're paying that in ATH.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's cheaper, sometimes it's more expensive.
That can be an issue if you're like trying to plan 3 months in advance, or in many cases, much, much longer in advance. Like, we need to have, how much ATH token do we need to buy now in order to pay for the compute power that we need? Because if, let's say you want to pay for 6 months of compute power, you probably cannot, as a client, put in 6 months worth of ATH token now and then have that as credited to your account for the next 6 months or however long you're going to use it, right? So how can they plan on that? Is that part of the deal that you make, where you just give us this much ATH token pegged at this price, and then we'll give you this deal for the compute power? Or is it, we'll give you this deal in USD, and then you can buy the ATH token directly from us or on the open market at whatever price it is at? I really don't understand how those kind of deals get made.
Sure. I mean, some compute deals are paid 100% upfront. Some are paid 50% upfront. Some are paid a certain number of months upfront. So there's different structures to how these deals occur. But to be honest, we're also very aware that the majority of our customers are Web2 customers, right? So they don't want to be paying in ATH token, right? They want to be paying in US dollar. They're very traditional businesses. So how do you kind of ensure that you can still do business with them whilst driving value to the ATH token? Because all revenue, all value accrues to our token, right? Regardless of whether we do business with a Web2 company or a Web3 company, right? And we have effectively set up a service entity, right, that operates as a middleman that takes on that ATH credit risk, right, and then transacts directly with these Web2 companies. And you do need a structure like that, because at the end of the day, and I think this is something that, it's certainly something that I tell projects to focus on. If you want real business, if you want to be dealing with Web2 companies, you cannot force them into a Web3 box. You need to be the one that is flexible in how you connect to them.
So how does or maybe not how, I think I completely get the how. Then is that why now you have a USD? That's the name of the stable coin, right?
We have, so Aethir itself doesn't have an official stable coin. We've partnered with projects that are much smarter at the financial side than us, that are building solutions like this. In our customer onboarding flow, right? There's no kind of pseudo stablecoin solution there. This is these stable coins are the products of very, very switched on financial teams that are looking at what financialization of GPUs looks like, what tokenizations and RWAs adjacent to GPUs look like. But yeah.
Do you think your clients would prefer to use a stable coin if they had to touch the Web3 space in order to use Aethir? Would they prefer to use a stable coin over ATH token? And if so, would you say, okay, you can do that? And then how would you manage to reflow what would normally be a direct flow of income with ATH token, direct the stable coin back into ATH token from the foundation level at Aether?
I don't know how you'd do it, to be honest. That's definitely not my sweet spot. Would a stable coin potentially be easier if if a company was interested in dealing in crypto but maybe wasn't super familiar, I'd say so. Probably is. We'd have to get creative with how you transit value back to the ATH token, but thankfully, I think it's not something that we have to deal with.
So you have Aether, the DeepIn project, obviously much more than a project. I think we can call it something different. Um, but it's essentially selling GPU. It's selling compute power to gaming builders, AI builders, or really anyone who needs it. How do you manage to stay competitive with a Google Cloud or an Azure or an AWS if that's the aim you're going for, and it most likely is from a revenue standpoint? How do you stay competitive with them if they've already been entrenched? Like AWS, everyone uses AWS. AWS went down a couple of days ago, right? And Binance had a major issue. How do you stay competitive with them? And if you are trying to stay competitive with them, what are you doing? What are you building now that would be adjacent to the offerings that they have now? For example, a
Yeah.
marketplace or something of that sort.
Yeah, good question. To be honest, deepins have a few natural advantages, right? First of all, the unit economics of a decentralized network is very different than one where you have to own and hold and manage all of the hardware yourself, right? So that's why, for example, across the board, Aethir's infrastructure is anywhere from 60 to 80% cheaper, right? It's just far less expensive for us to offer compute to our customers when we don't own the compute ourselves. The idea of providing compute to someone from a resource that is underutilized is very different than one where it's your compute that you have to manage as a Google or an AWS. So that's a natural competitive advantage. I think, of course, scalability is a natural advantage, right? If there is hardware anywhere in the world, it can just join our network. We don't need to buy the hardware, go and speak to data centers and deploy the hardware in those regions, set up contracts and companies to manage those resources and hire people in different countries. We can just allow people to join the network. That gives us the ability to kind of move really, really quickly. And to be honest, it's one of the most exciting things about how our network operates. So,
well, so those big ones, they are targeting major businesses, corporations, enterprises, and it's not just like you don't just have the Google team or the Amazon AWS team going out and doing BD. They have affiliates via this marketplace program where they'll say like, oh, any company can be vetted and put onto the marketplace saying we sell Google services or we sell AWS services. We're using them ourselves and we can tie you in as another client to the amazing services that AWS has. Essentially, it's like an affiliate program, right?
Yeah.
So they've set up this very, very meticulous and intricate system that boils down to just an affiliate program, what we would know in the Web3 space as an affiliate program. How are you doing that in order to attract enterprises the same way they are? Because again, we're thinking long term here. We're thinking you clearly want to build something that's much bigger than just come and play Web3 games on your phone with our compute power. It's something much bigger. How are you planning on getting to that same level?
100%. Well, we're building very much the same infrastructure, right? I think companies all get to a point where you realize, okay, I can only build so big, or at least the rate that I can grow is linear, right? I understand how quickly I can grow. I know what my growth looks like. How can I start to bring the exponential back in, right? And the best way to do that is effectively to have other people do the work for you, right? Give the ability of the company to scale to others, right? The affiliate network that is the AWS marketplace, do similar things. And that's very much what we're unlocking with Mainnet Upgrade 2, right, which comes out in the next couple of months. This gives us the ability to create more endpoints for compute in our infrastructure, right? Allow companies to kind of plug in directly and then on-sell resources. We're creating opportunities with the RWA and GPU financing side for essentially products like Gaib, right? Products like Plume to come and build financial products on top of our infrastructure, right? We're unlocking in many ways a DeFi layer that sits on top of the GPU infrastructure. This is a massive yield-bearing, revenue-generating asset, right? We need teams, hundreds of these teams, to be building really cool products on top that then they're connecting to their financial institution and connections, right? That they're connecting to their retail investors. So Mainnet Upgrade 2 is very much about how do we take this really powerful, stable, and sophisticated thing that we've built, and how do we give others the ability to build on top of it and scale it? And that's a critical piece.
Yeah. I mean, that's the core of the question, right? And Web3, if this industry has one strength, it's community building. Like everyone knows how to build a great community. If you have a successful project in the Web3 space, you do not have a weak community. Everyone is doing the cheerleading for you and selling your product for you in one way or another. That's something that Google Cloud, and Azure and AWS, they may struggle with because they're much bigger but much slower too. So, but once they get that flywheel spinning, like it's a huge flywheel. Think of like a global size flywheel. It takes a lot of energy to get it moving, but once it starts moving, you can't stop it.
100%.
So, I mean, I guess like that's where Aether would like to be. Maybe not to be as cumbersome, but to be more agile. However, equally or nearly as big as that, right?
Yeah, I mean that's the dream. I still remember Jensen, CEO of NVIDIA, on one of his talks. He was asked about, how do you feel about the other GPU providers or other competitors to your infrastructure, right? And he said something like, they're not yet in the rearview mirror, right? He's like, I know they're coming, but they're not yet in the rearview mirror. And I almost feel like that's kind of where Aether sits from AWS and Google Cloud's perspective, right? These are the biggest companies in the world, right? The idea that we matter to them yet is somewhat ridiculous, I think. But we're coming, right? We're growing rapidly. I think we have a fantastic value proposition. I think every macro indicator out there is suggesting that we need more compute. We need to more efficiently manage our resources. And we need to be unlocking access to these resources from more than just the big five, the big seven tech companies, right? And that's exactly what we do. So I think there's a lot of room for us to grow. And I think that our advantages in particular are advantages that are going to shine over the next kind of 3 to 5 years.
What are your feelings on that, whether you think there was any wrongdoing or whether you think what is apparent and proven now, not necessarily the rumors or the speculations, that there was wrongdoing, and is there a lot of OTC trading from the Aether team side? Is there some mechanism in place to pump the token up? Like I think that it's clear that if there is, it's not as much as what was happening with Ohm. Like you don't go from 0 to $6 billion market cap in like 3 months.
Yeah.
Unless there's something really strange. And I'm going to show the chart. I'm going to put an overlay of the chart because you can't say that there was nothing weird going on there. I'm going to say it. There was something weird going on. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was not wrongdoing by the team. They say it wasn't. We have to take their word for it now. But there was something very, very weird going on when your token goes from, what was it, like 30 cents up to $6 in a couple of days, essentially. So back to the question. Your thoughts on that?
So I am obviously aware of the situation. I remember seeing all the posts come out when it took the big dump. I haven't followed up on the kind of the major outcomes as a result. I know that CoffeeZilla did a a deep dive. Zach XBT did a deep dive. So I know that a lot of smart people have taken a look, and I think I've heard a lot of your comments mirrored by the community. There wasn't necessarily any kind of super wrong thing that people could kind of point to exactly and say these are the bad guys. But I think there is definitely a fiscal responsibility on the team to make sure that your investors don't get totally wrecked, right? And it just sucks that in the crypto space we have had so many examples of this happen over the past, 3 months in particular. Just high quality projects on paper with big names behind them that just go up and then straight down. And I think that's it just pisses me off. It's a pain, because then it becomes incrementally more difficult for everyone else in the space. It's building something cool to convince their community that they're not going to behave in the same way.
But do you expect that what happened with that will affect future deals on the deal flow side of things for Aether, especially if you say, hey, we can help you with RWAs?
I don't think it should. I hope that this is a little bit of a blip, right? And the market kind of moves on. I think thankfully the RWA space is very secure. I don't think it's going anywhere as a narrative. I think more broadly, I know that I've heard that a lot of VCs in the crypto space are struggling, right? I think a lot of projects have found it a little bit more difficult to raise money over the past 6 months. But no, I don't think that.
But that's not necessarily because of what happened.
I don't think this is. I don't think there's going to be any longer term impact from a fundraising or an operations perspective for projects as a result of Mantra, thankfully.
So it won't have like an FTX effect or Terra Luna.
No, I don't think so. I mean, no.
That's good.
Yeah, I think it'll be all right.
I can't tell where you're from based on your accent. I'm going to guess it's either somewhere in New Zealand because it's like it's a lighter accent. And in between New Zealand and Australia, they're different accents, but between the two of them, I find that people in New Zealand have a more neutral accent than people in Australia.
That's outrageous.
Okay,
that's the most outrageous thing I've ever heard.
I've known multiple people from New Zealand, and it's like a subtle accent.
No, their accents are the worst. And
man, so you're Australian.
Yes, I'm Australian. But no. The Kiwi accent's much stronger than the Australian accent. They're the fish and
There are many different I guess versions of the Australian accent. It's a big place, right?
Yeah. No, there are. And to be fair, my accent's I would say relatively difficult to place. I grew up overseas most of my life, left Australia when I was 6, went back for boarding school, last couple of years of high school and then university. But even when I started my first job, it was at a big American company. All of my colleagues were from the US. And then after 5-6 years there, moved to Beijing, was in Beijing for about 8 years. It's where I founded Aethir. So yeah, I've been around other accents a lot. And you'd be surprised, even with an Australian accent or definitely a Kiwi accent, people sometimes have difficulty understanding what you're saying. So I think I've also pursued a little bit more of a neutral accent just to be more clearly understood.
I completely understand that. Like even the way I speak English, it changes a little bit depending on who I'm talking to. But being in America, like especially in a big city, you encounter people from everywhere. So I had some exposure to that growing up in Chicago where, okay, they're not going to understand this intonation or they won't understand this. So I'll change the way I talk to certain people. And then, of course, living abroad, living in Korea, their English proficiency is not great. So you really have to find the best way to talk with them. And
It's the
honestly, when
skill.
I talk with a Korean in English, I try to use as little intonation as possible.
Hmm.
I found that out way early on that if I just speak with zero intonation, they will understand 90% of what I say, no matter how quickly I say it. But if I just do that, it makes it so much easier for them. But then if I have that on and I'm talking to native English speakers, they'll be like, why are you talking like that? You sound like a robot.
Yeah, 100%. No, you definitely adjust. When you've lived overseas, like you are and like I do, you definitely learn to adjust how you speak depending on your audience.
Yeah.
It's helpful,
It is helpful. And it's an adaptation technique. Like you're not going to survive if you don't adapt. And that's a good lesson for businesses as well.
for sure.
Things are changing, especially changing quickly. Like in the not just in AI, but like the compute space. There's going to be other deep in compute providers, not even selling compute, but generating their own
Mm,
decentralized compute for their own application, which is going to be scaled up into however many different use cases as well. I've talked to a few of those.
for sure.
And of course, they have their own tokens and whatnot. Feudal Asia or East Seoul, it's kind of like the same thing. It used to be a totally different vibe.
Yeah.
It used to be all the super nerds from East, including Vitalik. I don't know if he's in town. He probably is. But it used to be like him and his entourage going around Seoul, showing off the cool, new, far-fetched ideas that they had just amongst themselves, just amongst like the really gritty builders and developers who prefer to be left alone and just typing on their MacBooks,
Yeah.
coding, right? And then they would throw a presentation together in a couple hours. It's usually a little sloppy unless they have their business people with them. And they say, I have this thing. And then from there, it sparks ideas amongst the other developers. That was the vibe of Eat Soul, even just a couple of years ago, where I went to them and I'd be like, I have no idea what's going on here. This is way over my head, and I'm not a developer, but it's neat to see that this is happening here. Now, there is some of that, but it's much more like conference vibe
Mm.
now. I don't know if you had attended them before, like the Eat Soul stuff before. Yeah, it's complete shit. And I think part of that is because of the Korean market. Not that there aren't builders here. Yeah, now it's like everyone wants to have their side events and have throw big parties, just like it feels like in KBW, but much scaled down because it's not quite
Mm.
as big. But yeah, that's the vibe shift I've
Is it
noticed.
more retail focused now?
It sure seems like it because now it's all the business people who are here, all the heads of ecosystem, heads of growth, and BD people running around. I
Mm.
haven't seen that many developers, and and that is normal for me to not see them because they don't throw a party at a club.
Hmm.
They would have dinner at some clandestine location on the top of a hill, and then go to their back to their hotel rooms and code.
Hmm.
That's the way it was. Maybe there would be like one public dinner, like a big dinner event, something along those lines, but it wouldn't be like, oh, I go here and then I go here and then I go here and then I go here. It's not like that. Now it is.
Got it. Yeah, I mean those are the people that you're trying to capture and pull into
Yeah.
your project's ecosystem, right? Those really cracked, switched on builders.
All right. Well, Mark, thank you so much for joining us. I think that this has been very insightful as to where the future of DePIN is going and decentralized compute and how people are utilizing it in order to tap into and build games and AI applications. So thanks again. Welcome back anytime. Would love to chat with you about any other developments you got coming up.
100%. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. Really nice Korean fried chicken place just around the corner. I walked past it on my way to the office,
Uh,
and it
do you remember
looks
the name of it? I can't remember. BBQ.
K something fried chicken, and it looks legit. It's got all the right keywords: crispy, potato, right?
Oh, you like the potato wedges? What do you like?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even really like. I'm there for the chicken, but it had all those like keywords, like crispy, delicious,
Yeah,
potato.
the ones that That's
Yeah, everything that
maybe
makes me
the
hungry.
biggest emotional
Beer.
response.
Yeah.
Oh, Kanbu. It's Kanbu
Yeah.
or Kyoto.
K
Yeah, I
K
think it's
kombu.
yeah, I remember now. There
Yeah.
is a Kanbu. It's two Ks, right?
Yes.
Kanbu. That's one of the better ones. And that particular Kanbu, that one is like it's bigger, so it's like nicer. It's a good place to go and hang out.
All right. I've got to find, before I fly out tomorrow around midday, I've got to find somewhere to have some good fried chicken. Some meal, lunch, dinner, after dinner, breakfast, early lunch.
I don't know if you'll be able to get breakfast fried chicken, but you can absolutely get anything from like 11 p.m. a.m. until middle of the night.
All
Yeah, you
right.
can get fried chicken.